It is now the first week of March 2020. Most people call that very close to spring. Those of us involved in politics, Republican politics in North Carolina, well, we call the first week of March the start of anybody, Bueller, convention season. Probably my most favorite time of the year because the temperatures start warming up and just you want to get outside again. You want to just go out and see stuff, and not really worry about winter so much. Of course, North Carolina is pretty mild here anyway, but it's one of those the summer road trip kind of thing. Spring summer driving season. Anyway, so convention season got started last Saturday, actually February 29th, down in Dublin County at the convention. Did not attend that convention. My reasonings was just I just got too many other Saturdays already doing conventions. I'm like, I want to just have it in March, April, and then obviously the one Saturday in May for convention season. I just don't want to stretch it too much, and I don't think my employer in the retail world would appreciate me taking that many Saturdays off either. But tonight was Thursday night, and I drove about 45 minutes west of my studio, aka bedroom, here in the west part of Greensboro, North Carolina. Went down the road to Yadkin County in the little quaint town of Yadkinville. Yadkin County is the county that's just about 15 miles or so west of Winston-Salem. Fortunately, Winston-Salem is a small enough city to where the suburbs don't sprawl on and on and on like a lot of other cities here in the southeast, like Atlanta or Orlando, just goes on and on and on with the concrete jungle. Winston-Salem, fortunately, is not like that. You get 5 minutes out of town, it's rural, rolling hills and farms as far as the eye can see. Now, Yadkin County, to put in perspective, the population is just about 40,000 people. Of those 40,000, 23,000 are registered to vote. Of those 23,000 registered voters, a whopping 13,000 or 57% of all registered voters are Republican, and only 3,500 voters are Democrats, 26% of the vote. And actually, the Democrats are number 3 in Yadkin County, behind your Republicans and your unaffiliateds. Unaffiliates are 6,600. So, and then there was like 9 Constitution, 9 Greenies, and like 90 Libertarians or something. Very, very low for all the third party, waste your vote people, blah, 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 kind of people. Anyway, of course, the Democrats are also blah, 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 but and very rural county, 12 precincts. We have about 165 here in Guilford County. So anyway, this convention, it kind of ran, being the first convention of my 2020 convention schedule. This convention ran similar to the way the first convention of 2019 ran, which is in Forsyth County. Now, fortunately, there were no, unlike Forsyth, the people there was no, I felt welcomed in Yadkin County, unlike Forsyth. And I will give a shout out to the Yadkin County Public Library. Very nice people there, and they have free Wi-Fi. You don't have to be a local county resident to use the Wi-Fi, right? You just bring your laptop or your little smartphone, you can use the Wi-Fi. So a lot of other counties, you got to be a resident of the county to get the Wi-Fi. So very good there at the Yadkin County Public Library in Yadkinville. And also, shout out to the Yadkin County Courthouse, which honestly, the building looks real industrial looking. It does not look at all like a courthouse from the outside, but from the inside, it looks pretty professional looking. And to give you, the county is so small that they actually have the DMV license plate office at the courthouse too. Depending on your state, some of you, when you go to the DMV, you can get your driver's license and your license plate at the same place. But here in North Carolina, you gotta go two places. You gotta go one place, get your driver's license, and then another place you do your license plate and your vehicle registration there for some reason. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Okay, so I mentioned to y'all that it was similar to Forsyth County's convention. And what I mean by that was not the people, thankfully, but the structure, the meeting structure was similar to Forsyth, because you had a county party meeting, and then you had, after that, you had the county convention. Now, what was different from Forsyth, though, was the meeting, the county meeting and the county convention were held at different locations. Now, when I got the announcement that Yadkin County was having a county convention tonight, this was back over the weekend, I believe, last Saturday, Sunday. I was told they were going to have a county GOP meeting at about 6 o'clock or so, and at that meeting there'd be a covered dish dinner, and then they would go across the street to the county courthouse to have their convention. Okay. Now, me, being the introvert that I am, and I know for some of you who have never met me in person, that's kind of hard to believe, but yes, I am very introverted. I mean, you can, if you can put a camera on me at these conventions, and for the whole time be like, put a camera on me, and you see I'm an introvert. Even though it's kind of hard to believe that the person who you see is very quiet and low-key at the conventions is really, on YouTube, a very unique, what's the word? Very unique and very animated, fairly animated personality. Of course, I've had a pretty long day. I've been up since like 5:30 or 6 this morning because I had to get during the vehicle service, and that's a long story for another day on that. But anyway, being an introvert, and being that I'm very outside the box, because media just does not cover political and especially inter-party meetings or conventions. They just don't. So I took it upon myself to, about 6 years ago now, start covering conventions, right? But being that I'm a very soft and out in public, I'm a very introverted person, and I like to think I'm very low-key and very well-mannered too. When I go to these conventions, county convention, district convention, and it's out, and it's not my home county or my home district, I like to always take the path of least resistance. And that means if a county is having a meeting and a covered dish dinner before their actual convention, I will do what I feel is polite and not attend the meeting / dinner, because I don't want to be, I don't want to seem like I'm imposing. Okay. In retrospect, based on the convention was very short. It was about 26 minutes, and I think they did most of the speeches and a lot of the things you do at a typical convention. They did everything kind of front loaded at the covered dish dinner / meeting. So if I had to do it over again, I would actually go to the meeting / dinner. But, and I was thinking about this on the 45-minute drive home from Yadkinville. You know, if I had to do it all over again, I would go to the covered dish dinner / meeting. But in order to seem like I'm not imposing or being a freeloader or something like that, or crashing a party, then I would bring something. Soda, chips, you know. I'm not a cook, okay? So I'm not going to bring in a homemade green bean casserole or something. But yeah, anyway. I was kind of rambling there, but let me get right into the convention. Okay, so the call to order was at 7:07 p.m., which was a little early because it was originally scheduled to start at 7:15. But at 7:07, we started the precinct meetings. This county was probably the first county I've been to where things are very laid back and low key. Pretty much all the counties I've been to up to this Yadkin County convention, all the conventions I've been to is you go to the venue, could be a courthouse or some meeting room somewhere or something. But the very first thing you would see is a registration table. And of course I would tell them I'm a guest. I would always have my voter registration card, just so they know I'm a Republican, that I'm going to be a good, well-behaved boy, and I'm not an imposter, okay? So, with this convention, you just walk right into the courthouse, take a seat, and a few minutes later, they begin the meetings. The precinct meeting, the whole entire time I was able to sit towards the back of the room, okay, and just mind my own business. It was very, I definitely like the laid back style of this Yadkin County convention, you know, because some other places you go, it's just really, you know, that initial going through the registration, sitting down and feeling like you're excited to be here, but you're also like, why are there no other guests here? This is weird, you know? But tonight, I didn't have that feeling. So they did the precinct meetings, and everybody kind of got up and met with their precinct. And they passed around the sign-up sheet to be a delegate for the state convention and everything like that. Yadkin County, according to the state party, can send up to 54 people as registered delegates to the state convention. Okay, but of course, if they go over 54 delegates, then they can send alternates, and pretty much 99% of the time, the alternates are almost always seated as delegates at state convention, because usually the state party almost always has enough seats on the convention floor in order to have delegates be in order to have alternates as delegates. Okay, now last year the disaster in Concord on Saturday, well, that's a long story for another day, but that was a disaster. So that one time the state party was caught with its pants down. But all the other conventions I've been to, the state party has done a good job making sure that there's always more chairs in the convention hall than there are actually delegates to the state convention. Okay, so precinct meetings at 7:07. At 7:25, the convention was actually officially called to order. Okay, now most counties, they do their elections for county party officers, your chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, secretary. The bigger the county, the more positions. Like here in Guilford, we have first vice chair, second vice chair, third vice chair, that sort of thing. But what happened was the chair of Yadkin County, I forget the man's name, but really, really nice. Got a very warm, friendly impression from him. Kind of like my buddy Daryl Mitchell down in Johnston County last year too. But the gentleman from Yadkin County made a motion on the convention floor to have the executive board reelected. Now, again, most counties, the officer elections go in odd number of years every 2 years, but Yadkin County, from what I witnessed tonight, apparently is a little different, and they go year to year. But it was a very informal election because a county convention delegate made a motion to re-elect the Yadkin County Republican Party Executive Board. And the motion was seconded, and everybody in the room said aye. It was unanimous, so everybody gets reelected for at least one more year. Okay, now this was a very good turnout, I will say, for such a small county and population. There were, I sort of did my best to count people around the room without looking too suspicious. I would estimate there were about 50 to 60 people. Now, which is very good, because in Guilford County last year we had about 90 delegates to our county convention. And New Hanover, boy, those numbers fluctuated in New Hanover when I was there. Some years we had like close to 200, and a couple years, especially during the back end of the Sam Ibrahim / Michael Franklin tenure, it was down to about 75, 80 people. So, I mean, to have 50 or 60 people in a county where there's only 40,000 people is very, very encouraging, because it's an election year, but it's also very, very good anyway to begin with. There was a new precinct chair elected for the North Hall Creek precinct, and believe it or not, his dad used to be a long-time precinct chair of that same precinct. That's pretty cool. Now, there are 12 precincts in Yadkin County, and tonight we had 11 precinct chairs present, right? So only one precinct didn't have a chair. Very impressive to get 11 out of 12. Here in Guilford County, again, Guilford's a lot more democratic than Yadkin, but we're about less than half. I know that. We're probably somewhere around the 25 to 35% range of having precincts that are occupied. But what I liked about this convention was that the chair of Yadkin County actually allowed the precinct chairs to introduce themselves to people and just say, "Hi, my name is John Smith, and I'm precinct chair of Big Hill," or something, you know. At a lot of other conventions, especially the bigger counties, they try to cram so much stuff, so many speakers and so many other things into like a 2-hour window that they don't do, have precinct chairs introduce themselves. Well, also a lot of bigger counties, there's like, well, in Guilford there's 165 precincts, so it would take a while to have precinct chairs introduce themselves. Probably take a good hour just to do that, right? Okay, so we didn't really have a credentials committee. The credentialing of the county delegates was just sign the basically sign the sign-in sheet. But the chair did a good job making sure it says, listen, if your name's Billy Bob, make sure you sign it William, and that make sure when you sign the sign-in sheet that it's your official name that appears on your voter registration. Okay. Next, we kind of had the chair allowed. We had a bit of an open mic time, and the chair he let the county convention delegates speak about anything political. It was very cool. Again, this would never happen in a bigger county. But we talked about some of the very important races. I mean, they're all important in an election year, but still, especially getting Dale Folwell reelected, getting a Republican attorney general, because the thing about having a Democrat attorney general, even though the Republicans control the state house, state senate, and they have a majority on the council of state. The council of state being, your treasurer, your secretary of public instruction, that has sort of offices. But even though you have all that control in Raleigh, when you have a Democrat attorney general, Josh Stein is his name, he tries to undermine everything the Republicans have done, and he just does not represent the best wishes of the state. And that's just that's not only my opinion, that's the opinion of pretty much every single Republican in North Carolina. Also, we talked about the importance of conservative judges. Now, this year, there's going to be, when you go to the polls this fall, they're actually going to have the party affiliation listed right next to the name of the judge, which I think is going to help a lot, because what has happened was back when the Democrats were in control back in the 90s, they decided to put party affiliations next to the name of the judges. Well, guess what happened? A lot of Republican judges were elected. So the Democrats came back a few years after that and said, we're not doing that anymore. Took the party label off the judges, and then, things started getting a lot more even, and almost tilted slightly in favor of having Democrat judges elected. Well, then, of course, the Republicans took control of the legislature after the 2010 election, and finally, after some struggles of getting it passed, finally, now, here in 2020, you're going to be able to see what the party affiliation is. Because there's been this tug of war of, well, if you put the party label on, more people are going to vote Republican than Democrat. That's sort of tug of war. Oh, yeah, and another thing that I learned about these conservative judges that run statewide is when you're campaigning for a judicial candidate, you really need to make sure that you put the name conservative by their name. Because the thing about it is the Democrats do a very good job of not putting liberal, socialist, progressive, or any of those Democrat buzzwords by their judicial candidates. So the Republicans, in order to distinguish themselves from the Democrats, really need to put the word conservative in, their advertising for the Republican judges. And also, I'll say that from my experience personally, it's always good when you're working the polls to ask people that walk up and say, "Hi, how are you? Would you like information on conservative judges?" You do not want to say Republican judges so much. Conservative is a lot more effective because, Republican, there's a lot of conservative-minded, unaffiliated voters. And there's even a few conservative Democrats that are left who like to hear. So there's a lot of Democrats unaffiliated who still like to vote for conservatives, but they do not really necessarily like to vote for a Republican, even though the conservative is almost always registered Republican. I hope you get that. It's a little complicated, but I want to put that out there. Let's see. Another idea that was floated about at this convention was we talked a little bit about the 50 feet rule, because here in North Carolina you cannot do any campaigning unless you're at least 50 feet from the door. Okay. Now, there's been some episodes, apparently in Yadkin County, where the Democrats will try to get as close to the door as possible and violate that 50 feet buffer. Okay. But Republicans, we like to play by the rules. So what the chair was thinking of doing is taking 12 pieces of plywood, painting them, and then putting a sign that says conservative info here. Okay. And then having a little place where, you know, you can, little shelf or holder where you can get, you know, ballots of conservative and or Republican candidates. Because one thing that was mentioned tonight was the way that these various polling places are and how the Board of Elections uses them is it can be a little difficult to get a spot, you know, where you can campaign without having obstacles around you. And personal example, my polling place by my precinct is pretty difficult to campaign at. It's a church, and and they use one side of the church as the polling place and one entrance, and then the other side is not used as a polling place. But what you have is you have one way in, one way out. Okay. And you have a narrow little, you know, street, narrow little road, but right along this little road you have parking spaces. Okay. But then on the other side you have like a fence or a bunch of trees, but it's, you know, there's and of course you have to be 50 feet from the door. So what happened to me in the 2018 election was, I mean, it was very hard to get a spot, because of course the Democrats are out there really early in the morning claiming their spot, you know, 50 feet from the door, and there's a very narrow sidewalk. It's just crazy. My polling place in Wilmington was a lot different. You had a nice big open parking lots. Okay. And at one end of the parking lot you had the actual fellowship hall where people went to vote, and then the other end was kind of open. It was a very open area. Well, this particular venue that the Board of Elections uses for my precinct to vote is just the opposite. It's very narrow, very long. It's just really difficult to campaign, and I think I'm gonna have to you know, a week or so before the election, I'm gonna have to really scope out where I can you know, be you know what I mean, get a little tape measure from Home Depot or something and measure 50 feet from the door, and then try and claim a spot, and also get there before the Democrats do. And by the way, one cool thing about tonight's meeting was the county sheriff is a Republican, and he was sitting right in front of me, so it's pretty cool, right? So I better not have gotten out of hand. Okay. And finally, the Yadkin County GOP discussed having a Lincoln Reagan Day dinner, and all the counties, not just in North Carolina, but all the Republican Party organizations across the country, no matter what county you're in, whatever state you're in, they all like to have these Lincoln Reagan Day dinners. That's like their big local fundraiser, okay? Yadkin County is shooting for a date towards the end of May, okay? Now, when you look at the calendar, it's probably going to be, I don't know for sure, but it's probably going to be the weekend right between Memorial Day, right between the state convention, which is like May 15th, and then Memorial Day weekend. So, but the thing about it was they didn't want to have it in April because it might be too soon. They didn't want to have it in June because a lot of people are vacationing somewhere. And also the ticket price was discussed, and Yadkin County wants to stay with the $20 ticket price, which is pretty low. But I like how they think about blue collar people like me, because here in Guilford County, they, for their Lincoln regulator, they want $100. Yeah, it's a lot of money. That's a big reason why I never go to these Lincoln regulators. I just can't afford it, But $20, I might be able to actually go to this event. The thing about it is, though, as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm an introvert. Also, another thing is, I do not like getting dressed up. I'm like, oh my gosh. Ugh. But I don't know. Maybe someday I'll get ambitious and want to go and do it. Who knows? Anyway, we adjourned the convention at 7:51 p.m. So let me backtrack. We started with the precinct meetings at 7:07, went to the convention at 7:25, and adjourned at 7:51 p.m. So this is one of the shortest conventions I've ever attended. But again, I think a lot of the speeches and speakers they did at their little cover dish dinner, and I should have attended, and I didn't. But I'll know for next time. Anyway, for the Conservative Pelican, I'm Bobby Crawford. Good night.